This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast extra for Saturday, July 26th. On today's episode, I'm going to be answering a question that comes from a listener who asked me, what do I think of the all-seeing eye and the tattoo of the all-seeing eye? And I'll be answering that on today's show.
This is a Dark Illumination Report extra with RJ Womack.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I'm RJ Womack, aka Brother Nero, and this is the Dark Illumination Report podcast extra, the podcast where we promote the serious religious worship of Satan and demons as a way of life. And we try to pass down our teachings to younger diabolists so they can carry on the tradition and carry forward the religion so we can make sure the religion's around for a long time. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the all-seeing eye and what I think about that and what I think about tattoos of that. For me, the all-seeing eye is a symbol of the invisible hand of Satan or the providence of Satan and Lucifer. And that's the way I see it. Now, that is not the way the Masons see it, contrary to what Christian conspiracy theorists will tell you. A lot of what the Christians believe about the Masons is not true, and it comes from the writings of one man, a Frenchman who used the pen name Leo Taxil. And Leo Taxil wrote accounts of being part of Masonic rituals, or being a female who witnessed Masonic rituals that were dedicated to Satan. But as it turns out, he admitted along with his publisher that it was his publisher that gave him the idea to act as if he was writing as a woman, acting that she was witnessing all these satanic rituals in order to sell more books and to make more money for the publishing company. Now, he came out and admitted to all of this, but the Christians still believe it, even though it's a century or more later since he wrote that stuff and since he had that press conference. They still refuse to accept that it was made up and that it was a conspiracy. So that's where we get the idea of Masons believing in Lucifer, or the symbol of the all-seeing eye being a symbol of Lucifer. Really what it means to the Masons is they believe it's a symbol of the divine architect. Now, they don't define who the divine architect is. They say that the architect of the universe is God. However, their members choose to define him, which means if you're a Muslim, then you would define him as Allah. If you're a Satanist, you would define him as Satan. Whatever you define him as, that's up to you. It's not up to them. And it doesn't have any specific meaning to any particular God or any connection to any particular God, at least according to them. And of course, the Christian conspiracy theorists will say, of course, that's what their public statement is, but that's not true. Now, I can tell you from my study of history that almost everything Christian conspiracy theorists say is a lie. They lie about everything. They've always accused any group that they don't agree with or any group that they don't like of being devil worshippers. It's always been the case. It will always be the case. When they didn't like what the pagans did, they attached their gods to Satan. When they didn't like what women did in ancient Greece, or they thought they were being too free, they accused them of worshiping the devil in sex orgies. When the Middle Ages, when they thought women had too much freedom, they accused them of engaging in bestiality. And as I mentioned before, with the goat of Mendes, they believed that Christians believed that the women were having sex with the goat. Now, there's no evidence to support that. There's no way to disprove or prove that. And even if for some odd reason the pagans did believe that, or did engage in bestiality, I can't say for sure, but I would say based on what we know about medieval witchcraft and them making false allegations about women having sex with animals, I would say that the goat of Mendes story and the priestesses having sex with a goat or a ram is probably highly unlikely. And these are the kind of stories that the Christians have been telling for centuries, and they continue to tell them. And people like Mark Dice or any other conspiracy theorist you can think of, any popular one that would come out on Coast to Coast AM, they keep perpetuating these stereotypes because it sells books, it makes them money, and they don't care whether it's true. And in fact, in the case of Mark Dice, I don't even believe he believes half the stuff he says. I believe it is a marketing gimmick, and that's all it is. I mean, think about his name. His name is probably not his own name. His name is Mark Dice. What do you think he's trying to say? Mark Dice. It's rigged. It's absolutely rigged. I bet you that's not even his real name. And I bet you he's playing a joke on everybody. He's punking everybody. He's basically, saying, look, I'm punking you. My name is Mark Dice. I mean, think about it. All right. That's the one thing I would say. But regardless of whether it's Mark Dice's real name or not, the fact is there are tons of people like him that spread all kinds of lies. There are people in occultism that tell you stuff that's not true. There are people in Satanism that tell you stuff that's not true. And there are certainly tons of people who believe in Christianity who teach you shit that is just not true. And they don't care about the facts because it doesn't support their narrative or their belief system. So you always have to take everything with a grain of salt. But anyway, so for me, to recap, I think having a tattoo of the all-seeing eye is perfectly fine for a diabolist. I think it's great. I think it's a great symbol. And to me, it represents Lucifer and Satan and the power of Lucifer and Satan and his influence on our life. I believe that Satan nudges us in certain directions, and he uses his invisible presence to nudge us in the direction he wants us to go. And for me, the symbol of the all-seeing eye is a symbol of that force that he is, that invisible force, that invisible hand that he uses to guide us and direct us and provide knowledge to us and help us to find our way on the shadow path. That's what I believe anyway. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope that helps.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Illumination Report podcast. For the latest news headlines, show information, and more, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com.